Hi everyone. In this video, we'll be looking into game number 15 from 1984 World Chess Championship between the world champion Grandmaster Anatoly Karpov and the challenger Grandmaster Garry Kasparov. If you are new to the series, I recommend you to watch previous 14 games before heading into this one. By the end of game number 14, it is Anatoly Karpov who is leading the championship 4-0. Let's jump right into this one. Anatoly Karpov, starting with the white pieces, go for 1d4, the queen's pawn opening. Garry Kasparov replies with knight to f6, the Indian game. c4, e6, East Indian defense. Knight to f3, anti-Nim South Indian variation. b6, transpose into queen's Indian defense. g3, Fianchacho variation. Bishop to a6, Nimsovich variation. b3, quiet line. Bishop to b4 with check. Bishop to d2, bishop back to e7, bishop to g2. Kasparov goes for castling, Karpov goes for castling. d5, c takes on d5, knight takes on d5, knight to c3, knight to d7, knight takes on d5, e takes on d5, rook to c1, rook to e8, rook to c2, c5, rook to e1, bishop to b7, bishop to e3, a5, queen to c1, a4, rook to d1, a takes on b3, a takes on b3, bishop to f6, knight to e1, h6, bishop to f3, queen to e7, queen to d2, rook to a3, rook to b1, rook to d8, d takes on c5, knight takes on c5, queen to b4, d4, bishop takes on d4, rook takes on b3, rook takes on b3, rook takes on d4, queen takes on b6, knight takes on b3, rook to c7, rook to d7, rook takes on b7, rook takes on b7, queen takes on b7, knight to d4, king to f1, queen takes on b7, bishop takes on b7, knight to f5, knight to d3, bishop to c3, e3, g5, g4, knight to d6, bishop to f3, king to g7, king to e2, king to f6, h3, king to e7, bishop to d5, king to f6, knight to c5, king to e7, knight to a4, bishop to a5, knight to c5, bishop to b6, knight to a6, bishop to a5, knight to b8, bishop to c3, knight to c6 with check, king to d7, king to d3, bishop to e1, knight to e5 with check, king to e7, king to e2, bishop to c3, knight to f3, bishop to a5, bishop to b3, bishop to b6, knight to e5, bishop to c5, king to d3, bishop to b6, bishop to d5, bishop to c5, king to c3, king to e8, king to b3, king to e7, king to a4, bishop to b6, king to b4, king to e8, knight to c6, king to d7, king to c3, king to e8, king to d3, bishop to c5, king to e2, king to f8, king to f3, bishop to a3, bishop to b3, bishop to c5, knight to e5, king to e7, knight to d3, bishop to b6, knight to b4, bishop to c5, knight to d5 with check, king to f8, bishop to c2, bishop to a7, h4, king to g7, h5, bishop to c5, king to e2, knight to c4, bishop to f5, knight to b6, knight to c3, bishop to b4, knight to b5, king to f6, bishop to c2, knight to c4, knight to d4, bishop to c5, knight to f5, knight to d6, knight to g3, king to e5, knight to f1, bishop to b4, knight to h2, king to f6, bishop to b3, bishop to c5, knight to f3, bishop to b6, king to d3, bishop to c5, bishop to c2, king to e6, knight to g1, king to e5, knight to e2, bishop to b6, bishop to b3, bishop to c5, knight to c3, king to f6, knight to d5 with check, king to e6, f4, g takes on f4, g5, f takes on e3, g takes on h6, e2, knight to f4 with check, king to e7. It was in this position after 93 moves into the game. Both Anatoly Karpov and Garry Kasparov has agreed to end the game in a draw.